It has been a year, as I said, that we are reviewing. With Craig Stobo after 12, we'll preview 2025 because it's always nice to look in the rear vision mirror and you hopefully learn some lessons. But it's been a difficult year, you'd have to say. Politically, economically, socially. I don't think any less difficult or more difficult than the year that preceded it. 2023, that was a difficult year as well. Um, there was a sense at the end of 2023, though, that a, well, a corner might be turned, that there was a sort of an optimism that always rests when you change a government and you get a whole bunch of new people in with new ideas and you go, oh, well, this might work. But you'd have to say after a year, we're still facing the same issues that we were 2022, 2023, 2024, and that is an economy that's stalled, with education pass rates that are still appalling in comparison with Western economies. Still with the same cultural divides in New Zealand, which seem to be entrenching rather than diminishing, and a sense that we're heading into our own little silos. That the concept of being a New Zealander and a New Zealander, in which the broad brush of us agree on the major issues and we just get on with it, isn't quite so happening. There's a suggestion that at the fringes, we are being dominated by the activists and the theatrics, and that the middle is not holding and it is not surviving very well. And that's, I have to say, not just simply a New Zealand phenomena, it's happening all throughout the Western world as we talk. All right, joining us to talk about that, though, he's been in the Labour Party for a very long time. I think he came in '93, so I was there then. But he's been in the Labour Party ever since he was the Member of Parliament for West Coast, and then I think it was West Coast Tasman after that. He's a list MP, but he's still highly thought of within the Labour Party and presumably will be at the forefront of any restoration, if there is one. Damien O'Connor, and he joins us now. Damien, thank you so much for joining us. Is Parliament quit for the year, Damien?
It has, yes. 6 o'clock yesterday was the adjournment debate, and a bit of a light-hearted summary of the year from most of the party leaders. And so I think everyone's looking forward to a break, and and other people continue working around the country. And as you summarised, I think it was, still a lot of pressure on people for lots of different reasons. And so hopefully other people can have a bit of a break as we lead into Christmas as well.
Mm. Listen, in the New Zealand Herald this morning, I don't know if you've read it. There was a piece
No,
by...
I haven't.
You haven't? Okay. There's a piece by the New Zealand Herald's economics reporter, and it relates to the release this week. And the reason I'm raising it is because obviously
Yeah.
the state of the New Zealand economy is of serious concern still. We are in a recession, and we don't look like we're going to get out of it anytime soon. But the opening of the Treasury books this week, the end of year financial statement, exposes that it's not getting any better anytime soon. The suggestion in the New Zealand Herald is that, presented with the opportunity to provide an alternative, Barbara Edmonds, the finance spokesperson for Labour, in the 2 hour or the hour debate that you managed to get in Parliament on on the release of those statistics, missed the open goal. And the suggestion is that although Labour can be critical of it, they are responsible, essentially, the New Zealand Herald claims this morning, for a good part of what it is, because, it's the sort of denouement of the 12 months, you're only 12 months into a new government, but also you need to provide some policy responses as to what you do different tomorrow if you were government. Do you think that's fair criticism?
Not really. I mean, we've been voted into opposition, and we've been reflecting on that. What were the messages? And there's a lot of rhetoric. There was a lot of promises made in the lead up. As you pointed out, there was a lot of hope that there'd be massive change, or there'd be change that was beneficial. The reality was that we were facing an international economic situation post-COVID that was very inflationary. We had a lot of expectations. A lot of people were grumbly, and most incumbent governments got voted out post-COVID. So the hope that we'd have a new way hasn't eventuated. But it's actually really important that we don't just rush out, bark at every passing car, which is, the analogy used, that we actually look at what are the possible alternatives. And you can't have a revolution, not at this point anyway, and people want to know what changes will you make that can help me and help us as a community, that give us a better way forward, because what we've seen is austerity, the cutbacks, and the belief that, that's going to benefit us all. Well, clearly, it has choked the economy, and now we're seeing until the end of next year, the continuation of this pressure, and actually no clear sign of when that will be when that will ease up. So we have to be realistic. We're always honest with our policies, and we're starting to work on those. We had a good conference. Remits went up, but they still have to be consolidated into effectively a proposition, a manifesto, in 2026 that said this is a better alternative than what you have. That's what people are looking for, and we haven't got there yet.
No, okay, all right. Well, at least you're honest about that, because I don't think you have either. But here was the other point. The problem, it seems, and this was brought out by Treasury in its commentary and a number of economic commentators this week, is that the economy had too much money put into it as part of the COVID response. And as a consequence of too much money being put in it and poor decisions being made around the billions of dollars worth of essentially money printing, that led to higher than inflation than it was required, which led to the Reserve Bank of New Zealand and Adrian Orr instituting a tighter monetary policy than would normally be, but is good for the country. And we've ended up in this hard landing as a consequence. That also seemed to be the Treasury line in the briefing this week that accompanied the end of year documents. Do you accept that?
Yes, I do. I think that reality played out around the world. Long before we were, looking at easing up the pressure within our economy, that is borrowing some money to pay out to businesses, to keep them afloat, to keep people in jobs. This is the COVID situation. There were billions of dollars, but across the globe, it was trillions of dollars. What we're facing is mirrored across most other economies. In fact, relative to most other economies, we are far better off. We were when we left government than many others. Now, that doesn't mean to say that there hasn't been huge pressure on people from inflation, the cost of living. But if we hadn't borrowed money and put it into the hands of working people and into the hands of businesses through COVID, we would have had a massive problem. The fact that we did that and we kept the primary sectors going, all bar the forest industry that was given a temporary halt, all the other sectors that, I was Minister of Ag, we were working actively with all of them, with the meat companies, the dairy companies. If we'd had one shipment of product going to China with any sign of COVID on it, we would have had that market shut down. Now, we did that without, that is, we continued the exports without that occurring. So a massive achievement, but meanwhile in the other sectors,
So let me get this right. You think your response on COVID was spot on, as despite the COVID?
No, I won't say spot on.
Yeah.
No, we had this discussion last week or a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
Of course we made mistakes. But actually, if you look across the globe, if people say, should we have printed so much money? We didn't print it, but, we went out and borrowed money to put into the economy. We accept that, which is what you do if you have the ability. The fact we were starting with a low level of government debt enabled us to do that. Other economies were already starting at a high level. So, they're in a really dire situation going forward. But the issue for us is what's the vision for our economy going forward now?
Well, you can't sustain this is the reason I'm asking you the question, Damien. Okay, you accept that, and let's just say hindsight's 2020. Yes, mistakes were made. They were made for the best of intents. Blah blah blah. I accept that.
Yep.
The issue here is you can't keep sustaining the amount of money printing, the amount of credit that you're putting into an economy, the amount of borrowing that you're doing going forward.
Well, it's not us. And in fact, no, let's correct this. This national coalition government has borrowed more money than we've ever seen before. They said, and the stupidity is that they gave tax cuts to people, many of whom didn't need them. Of course, people on low and middle incomes, need a tax break. When you ask them how much they got, It was a relatively small
So are
amount.
you saying that
particularly.
you wouldn't have given any of the tax cuts out at all? So everybody who got a tax cut is still effectively got one now, obviously. You'd take them away from them?
Well, if you ask the people who are on low incomes how much they got and has it made
That's
a
not the
difference,
question I asked you,
most
Damien.
will say, no, most will say it hasn't made a difference. Now,
No,
I'm not saying what we would have done. That is that we had our policy leading up to the last election. It wasn't about tax cuts.
no, you're
You know,
about
it
to
was
take
about
GST
continuing.
off groceries, for example, fruits and vegetables, which would have been a subsidy of supermarkets from what I can see. But that was your solution
Well,
at that time.
it was a policy. Yes, not the smartest policy, but anyway, you know, you make these mistakes. I never agreed with it.
No, good on you.
You know,
Good on you.
move on.
No.
You know,
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah, yeah. All right. No, well, at least
um,
you've admitted that that was not a smart policy. Yeah, good on you, mate.
no, it wasn't.
Listen, but you can't keep on spending government spending. This government you talk about. Now, here's the thing for me, though, Damien. On the one hand, this morning you've said, listen, we've got austerity policies and they're dreadful and people are losing jobs. Well, only in the public sector, yes, they are. But then you're also
No,
saying,
across the private sector.
all right,
Ask
okay.
people in
All right,
construction.
yes.
Ask,
No, no,
yeah,
no. Media and all those sorts of people are losing jobs. I get that too.
yep.
But, and here's the but, you can't then say that these austerity policies are creating that outcome, but at the same time then turn around and criticise the government for still spending too much money.
Well, no. What I say is that you know we face the same reality across our economy. You have priorities. You make choices. So this incoming government decided to give money back, a lot of which went to top end. You know, people who didn't notice the difference. You know, didn't need it. But that was at the expense of many of the cutbacks that we're facing here. You know, plus on top of it, you know, the well-publicised $200 million to cigarette companies, you know, landlords who get a break through no capital gains, through you know, of course they're important in our economy, but was that the best use of kind of hundreds of millions of dollars when we've got pressure to spend it and we need to keep spending it in other areas? And so
Well,
you can't just turn off the tap.
let's just look at those other areas then.